Alright, I'm back to this bolo tie. I had to switch from my GoPro to my regular camera. GoPro is a great thing for what it does, but unfortunately for me, it ends up being too close, it's fisheye, too far away, it doesn't give you enough detail. So I'm switching to my regular camera, and we're just continuing on. Again, I said I was going to take some time off screen, and I didn't, fiddling around with that GoPro. I like it, but just not 100% sure it's exactly what I need. Anyway, we're going to continue just trimming down the top of this hat. And it's just a matter of just hogging out that wood, getting it where you need to go. Again, I cannot stress the importance of sharpening knives. If you don't know how to sharpen, find somebody who does. That'll either show you or do it for you. Because if you don't have a sharp knife, you're going to struggle a whole lot harder than you should be. And there's just no fun in that. There's no fun in struggling with this. This should be fun. And if it's not fun, again, why are you doing it? I realize if you may have a job that requires this, maybe you're a full-time wood carver or whatever, but if you're just doing this for a hobby and it's not fun, find a way to make it fun. This ought to be fun. If you're not having fun, then you got to wonder why you're doing it and what you're doing. I spent a lot of time carving when I was younger around a Boy Scout campfire. And to me that was always a lot of fun because you were making something useful, either a sharp stick to cook your hot dogs with, or a bolo tie, neckerchief slide. A lot of that stuff was just fun to make. And to me, I always say this when I do a show, when I do something somewhere and people ask me about it, there's just some joy in taking wood and making something useful out of it. Whether it's woodworking, gourds, wood carving, scrolling, intarsia, marquetry, you name it. There's just some joy out of making something worthwhile out of wood, because it's one of the oldest natural substances that we've been able to use and create beautiful things out of it. Now, having said that, I enjoy stones as well. Being a earth science / geology teacher, I enjoy the beauty that comes out of the stones we dig out of the ground. There's just something about that too. But wood for me has always been a special love that I had in creating stuff out of wood, and I enjoy it so much. I'm going to trim off the top of that hat. Let me get rid of that square corner right there. Trim off the top of that hat, take those carving lines away. We'll come back to the hat a little bit later, but I don't want to spend all the entire period, the entire time playing around with that hat. So we kind of got what we want out of the hat. Next thing we're going to do is square off or take off the corners. You can see it's very square. That hat's not going to be square like that. The hat brim is going to come around like this. Maybe you can't see that very well. I'm doing it with a pencil. It's going to come around like that, so we're just going to take those corners off. I know a guy in Utah, a guy Nelson, who does a lot of these bolo ties, and his are different than mine, as everybody else's are different from each other's. But he starts off saying you got to do it in a bread loaf, meaning from here to here it's got to look like a bread loaf. And so he rounds them off, and that's where everything starts out. Now he'll take his, as do others, they'll dunk them in a pail of water for a few days, and makes it a whole lot easier to carve. And I've tried that a few times and I thought that was cool. Not my style. I don't want to take off anybody else's style. I got my own style. But anyway, we've drawn that line in there, so now we just want to get close to it. Everything else is going to be behind that. If you look at these other ones, nothing is farther forward than that hat brim. And so that hat brim and the nose should be somewhere close to the same depth as far as the relief part of the carving. So we'll just trim that off a little bit more. I started doing these bolo ties when I saw a video by a guy named Bill Birch. The video was about him, it wasn't by him. Bill Birch was an old-time scout carver, LDS scout carver, Latter-day Saint, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, for those of you that don't know what LDS is. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, they are anyway, Bill Birch did a lot of these carvings, and his were more, I don't want to say cartoonish, but more of the caricature style. And if you get a chance, look him up on YouTube or one of those other videos, one of those other places where you can see it. But Bill Birch started those up in Spokane, and then he continued on in Salt Lake, and he made, I don't know, 60, 70, 80,000 of these. And then you have other fellows who have followed on with him. Gary Dollar continued on with him because Gary was one of his mentors, or one of his mentees, and Guy Nelson and several others do it as well. I've not done nearly as many as these fellows have. These fellows have done about 60 or 80,000 of them, and I'm not anywhere close to that. I think this would be 260 or something like that. But I like doing them, and I like doing them in my style. Mine's a little more, I don't want to say realistic because they're still caricatures, but a little more in terms of, I don't know what the term is I'm looking for. I don't know what's the best way to do that. But anyway, the ones I do are more, have more details, I guess is what I want to say. Mine take a lot longer than theirs. I know Gary, I've watched Gary do several of his, and he takes about 15 or 20 minutes to do one of these. I'm nowhere near that, as you can see. I don't want to do mine that quickly because I don't give away 1,000 of them a year. Probably not ever going to. But anyway, we're working our way around. I don't have that brim quite where I want to, so I'm going to take a little bit more of that off because I want it to be back a little bit. I want it to be rounded. Uncle Sam rounded hat, we're getting there. And then I'm going to go with my V-tool, I'm going to go straight across again. I want to outline where that's going to go. And we're getting where we need to go on that thing. It'll be thinner when we get done because it'll be about this thin. But I'm going to leave it fairly thick right now because it preserves it, especially as I'm carving the face. Sometimes my hands don't go where I want them to go, and I end up making a mistake and breaking off that corner. I've done that too many times, so I don't want to do that. I'm going to outline the ears, and I've just got them squared in. They're just square blocks right now. We'll play around with them later, but I want to square in those ears, or lay in those ears. So I've drawn the line in, and I'm just going to take that wood out. And then what I'm going to do with my knife is score in right here and here and take some of that wood off. I'm going to leave enough so that I know I'm leaving enough for a sideburn. But I've scored that with a stop cut. I'm doing the stop cut there. I'm just going to take the tip of that knife, making sure that my knife doesn't intrude into that ear. I just want to thin that face down right there just a little bit. I want to make that ear stand up. See that ear standing out? I'll come back to it, come up to it, and I'll cut that space off. We'll take off more later, but I just want to lay in those ears because it helps me lay in the side of the face. It helps me lay in what's going on with the structure and what's going on in there. Got to be careful, make sure the tip of that knife does not insert into that ear. Now you're going to take some of it off later, so it's not as crucial as it would be on other carvings. But you gotta leave enough wood there for your sideburns, but you gotta leave enough wood so that you're not, when you knock into that ear, you've got to be able to leave enough when you take off the knock marks that you've made. You leave enough to be able to have the rest of that ear there, because you don't want to get the tip of your knife into there, and then you cannot get all those cuts out without taking off a significant amount of that wood. Laid in the sideburns, I'm going to shorten that up just a little bit from my line. See how I went in a little bit from that line? Do the same thing here. We'll go up just a little bit. I'm going to cut up to that ear. Just trim it out. We got the football playing on in the background, and the bowl game's going on. So if you hear me scream and yell, I'll try not to do that, scare you. But one of my teams just may score or something. So anyway, nice to have a little bit of noise going on in the background without there being real noise. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to score in here in front of that sideburn. And then we're going to take a little bit of that off as well. That'll help narrow that face down a little bit. All we're doing is just outlining everything there. Okay. Again, making sure the tip of your knife, you know where that's at. That's one of the crucial things. Knowing that you're having sharp knives, and then you know where the tip of that knife is. Okay, we cut off the eyebrow, so we'll pencil that back in real quickly. And we've got the bottom of the nose. So the next thing I want to do is lay in that. I'm going to take my knife and lay it straight across and make a stop cut. Not straight in perpendicular, but just at a little bit of an angle. Just going to give it a little bit of angle so I can cut up to it and take that chip out underneath that. That tells me where the nose is going to go. And I haven't gone too deep so that I can see if I go straight across, I'm just about at the bottom of that ear. Not quite. I'm a little bit high. That's all right. I'm going to take some of this off, and that'll inch it up there. So notice I've got a little bit there that I could squeeze in. Let me scoot in just a little bit more here. There we go. Okay, so we set in the ears, set in the sideburns. Now we're going to set in the nose and the eyebrows. Draw our center line back in. Draw that nose back in. And I'm just going to score it with my V-tool. It's not what I'm going to cut it all with, but I want to score it because if it's not in the right spot, then I can always move it and it's not too deep in there. I can tell that it's roughly in the right spot where I want to be. So we just lay it in with a V-tool. Lay it in with that V-tool and we know where everything's going to go. Pardon me while I switch around. I need to grab a gouge out of my bag. Now I'm going to grab a big one and a small one. On this one, I think we can get by with the big one to start with. I'm going to take the gouge and I'm going to go straight into that face, right and around the eye socket. All I'm doing is setting in the eye socket. This isn't where everything's going to go because if you notice, the forehead is way far forward of this. And so before I do that, let's go ahead and set that back just a little bit. We don't need to take a whole lot off, but we do need to take off some. When we take off a little bit, what we can do is move that back a little bit, and then by the time we get to it, everything will be set in. See how we move that forehead back just a little bit? Let's take a little bit more. And again, we're still going to come in here at the bottom of that hat and take off some more of that wood, just like we do there. We'll take off a little bit more of that wood and move that forehead. But if you notice, the forehead is still way forward of that. This is here and this is here. So we're still going to have to take off some more. So we'll work on that in the next video. I'll talk to you later.